Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the Ball Father, the podcast presented by Sports Akita. It's your man, Reggie Roberts, NFL Communications Executive, and we're joined by our NFL analyst, winningest coach in Falcons history, Mike Smith. What's up, Coach? How we doing, man?
Doing great, Reg. Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing real good. Just want to get into this thing. We're inching dangerously close to training camp, which is probably one of my favorite times of the year because everybody's back in the building. The coaches got a lot of energy. They've come back from vacation. But we're now in that period where teams are starting to send the veterans off for the little 4-week, 5-week vacation. Rookies are still kind of getting some work, doing some stuff with the player development department. Talk about what that week's like, Mike, and walk us through what's gone on during the offseason and what this last month has been like and what goes on leading up to training camp.
Well, Reg, we're in the best time of the off season, in my opinion, because it's OTAs, which is organized team activities, and the teams can actually go out on the field and almost play football. There's no contact, but they can almost play football. It's that's the thing that I think is exciting about it, and they'll be finishing up their off-season program here next week. Some teams have canceled their mini camp where they can actually go play football. They can't tackle but they can go 11 on 11 and actually have some semblance of football going on, where the off-season program is broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is only meetings where you're just working in the classroom. Phase 2, you can go out and have walkthroughs, and then you get into phase 3 where you can do some organized team activities where now you can actually go out and work against each other, but there's no contact, which is tough because, as you guys remember and probably saw, the New England Patriots lost some practice time because of too much contact or too much physicality in the off season. So it's kind of a misnomer when you say you're out there practicing in the off season, because you're almost playing flag football or touch football or at walkthrough speed.
Mike, are the rookies at this point? Have they been fully immersed in the offense? Are they swimming? Have they caught on? What's been your experience with the rookies and the young guys after kind of being in the building for about a month and a half now?
Well, some of them have a better grasp than others. Some of the guys that are familiar with it because their colleges use the same type of verbiage and nomenclature, it comes a little bit quicker. This many camps that they're allowed to have where they can go 11 on 11 and really work against each other, I think that will really tell for the teams. They'll get a good idea, and they get to keep the rookies a little bit longer. The veterans will go home, and they'll be able to really take a deep dive with just the rookies, where they don't have the whole team there, where they can work with them on an individual basis and get them up to speed and be prepared for training camp that's going to open in the end of July.
So let me ask you, we're going to finish up with this. Just to say, just give me your sense when the rookies left. When the veterans left, what was your sense of? Did you have a pretty good sense of what kind of team you had when you were coaching when they all left, or what was your mindset during this part of year when the rookies left and the veterans left?
Well, we would do a deep evaluation of all the players, especially the rookies, in terms of where do we think they're at, and has it changed since draft day? Do we have a better idea of what these guys are going to be able to do and help us win games in year one? And some players are better than what we anticipated, had a better grasp of what we were wanting to do, and we would have a pretty good idea that, oh, we got us a good one here, or
Right.
we've got to spend some extra time with some of the other guys because they don't have a good grasp. And that's the thing you want to make sure, is that they have the mental part of it and they understand the playbook. The physicality and all that is something that they've always done. Being emerged into a NFL playbook is a whole lot different than a
Yeah.
college playbook. I can assure you that.
Well,
It's a full-time job.
full-time job. Yeah, full-time job. You got time to go to class. It's a full-time job. You're right. Well, there's three guys who are looking for jobs now who've been pretty good players, and I'm talking about Dalvin Cook, who's released yesterday. Ezekiel Elliott, who no one seems to know what he's going to do. All there are a couple updates on these two guys and DeAndre Hopkins. I read where Hopkins has a visit this week with the Tennessee Titans. I saw yesterday where Ezekiel Elliott was spotted walking around the Cowboys complex, which has created lots of speculation in Dallas about is he going to come back. And then Dalvin Cook, who, as you know, is a South Florida guy, supposedly has a visit on Sunday with the Miami Dolphins. What do you think all three of those guys land in? Obviously, all three of those guys are pretty good players.
They are. And as we've been talking about the entire offseason, Reggie, is that the running back position it's been so devalued, and you're seeing it right now. There's two really good players. I mean, Dalvin Cook's been a Pro Bowler, I think, the last 3 years. And I think over the last 4 years, he's rushed for 1,100 yards, and he's looking for a job. It doesn't add up. It really doesn't, in terms of the way that the salary cap is structured and the way that the running back position has been devalued. It'd be a great story for him to go to Miami. It really would. He'd be going back home, and
yeah,
it would be I think very fitting if he was able to get a deal. Now, he's not going to get the deal that he wants to get, financially. Now, he may love being in Miami, but I think he's a good fit there. I think Ezekiel Elliott, who knows what's going to happen with that situation. This one's been going on and on and on for a long, long time. And maybe he goes back to Dallas and in a reduced role. There's that possibility. And then I think it's been a big surprise with the Hopkins being let go with the Cardinals. I mean, he's a really good player. Got great skill set, great route runner, speed, explosive, all the things that you're looking at. And I think he's the one that asked to be released. I think he wanted to move on, didn't want to be a part of the Arizona Cardinals organization. And as we know, that organization has had a lot of things going on over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's playing out again this offseason with Terry McDonough's situation, and now you've got their best receiver that wants to go play somewhere else, and they're going to let him do it.
Well, I think the deeper story there is they gave the quarterback that gigantic contract, and that guy was the quarterback's guy. I mean, he was Kyler's guy. I think that is worthy of looking into as to what's happened there, and with the new offense, the rebuild. It'll be interesting to keep our eye on that one as we start the 2023 season. You're on with the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the ball for all the podcasts presented by Sports Keto. Mike, this one been bugging me lately that the last couple of years, every now and again you see just a handful of guys, not a bunch, but a handful of guys who are they get themselves ensnared into that whole gambling thing. I know that the rules for gambling when we were there in Atlanta weren't what they are now, but give us a sense of what you used to tell guys about things like that could not only sideline them for a few minutes, but also hurt our team. What did you tell our guys about gambling and things like that when you were coaching?
Well, it's really changed, Reggie, as you know, with the relationship with the NFL now, with gambling and sports, sports booking and all that kind of stuff. When we were there in Atlanta, in my time in the NFL, it was really taboo. Now, the relationships that the NFL has with gambling, with the fantasy football, draft games, and I believe there's some. I think there are a couple of owners that have ownership in some of these companies. So it was real simple for us. We always talked about it. We wanted everybody to make sure, and we would have an off-season program. Remember, we had it called Falcons
Right.
University,
Right.
and it would be very intense for the rookies, and then we would have it not so intense for the veterans. But we would reiterate all of the rules and the things that go on. We'd help them with their finances and try to get them to understand how important it is. And you couldn't even go, they didn't want you in a casino
Right.
back then,
Right. I
and
remember.
uh, and it's changed now because of, I think it was a landmark decision by the Supreme Court that allowed betting and betting on football here in the United States, and it's changed the whole landscape of what's going on. So, one, you've got to have a plan and program in your off season where you're going to talk about all the important things, and probably one of the biggest one, and it always needs to be talked about, is betting and what you can and you cannot do. And they try to make it simple rules from what I understand. There's no betting on, there's, I think, 3 rules that they talk about, and there's no betting on the NFL.
Right.
And it says that all NFL personnel are prohibited from placing, soliciting, or facilitating any bet, whether directly or indirectly. And that includes betting on games outcomes, stats, scores, performances, all of that stuff. And it's pretty clear for
Right.
both players and league personnel. You can't do it. And you can bet on other sports, though. Players now are allowed to bet on other sports. That was kind of taboo 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. All personnel, NFL personnel, other than players, are prohibited, though. So, Reg, the players could go bet on a basketball game, but you, because you work for the Atlanta Falcons, or me, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do betting on NBA, NFL, PGA. Just couldn't do it.
Right.
So it's changed so that, and I think that part of it's a little confusing and some people have gotten caught in it. Some non-players have gotten caught up through the years with regards to not understanding that they can't bet on PGA. They can't bet on baseball. So it's different, and that could be a little bit confusing. And I think here's where they've gotten the players have gotten into trouble. I don't know this, but it's the third thing is you can't gamble in the workplace. You can't, and everybody's got one of these, right?
Right.
And when you got one of these, you can gamble. And it's real easy to sit in the locker room and gamble, bet on baseball, bet on the NBA, bet on hockey, whatever you want to do. But that is not allowed in the NFL. And I think that's what's happened with some of these players. I think there's been 6 or 7 that are being investigated this off season.
Yeah.
And I think that's the rules that they're saying that they weren't betting on their NFL, but they were in the facility making those bets. And of course, with tracking, with all of this stuff, they can track everything you do.
Yeah.
Is that how you? I mean, is that how you see it as well?
Well, here's what my thing was. I was averse to it because having spent 7 years at league headquarters in New York City, a lot of the rules obviously emanated from New York City. I sat in a lot of meetings where those sort of things and policies were put together and sit down to the clubs, and I made sure all 15, as director of information for the 15 NFC clubs, I made sure all 15 of my PR guys understood there were 15 teams back then. I'm sorry, there were 15, 30 teams instead of 32 now. But I made sure all 15 guys were aware of what the rules were, just in case anybody had a question, any media guy had a question. I wanted, one of the things I specifically did was made sure that each guy got at least one story to their national writer or their AP writer to make sure that everybody in that market saw that story. And then the other piece for my own personal recognizance, I wouldn't even, you go on vacation, you go on a cruise with your family, and I didn't even walk through the casino. I didn't even know where it was on the cruise ship. I didn't even walk in because I didn't want anybody to say, "Oh, I saw Reggie Roberts in the casino." I mean, I was that paranoid about it. You know what I mean? I was.
Me as well, Reg. And I've done some golf tournaments, charity golf tournaments that happened to be at places that had casinos, but I was the same way. I was not going to be seen in a casino, and I'm not a big gambler either. But Reg, it's been an issue forever, and
Right.
now it's kind of out in the open, and it's a business, and the NFL is business partners with DraftKings and
Cool.
some of the other sport, the fantasy football. And I've got a couple stories that I'd like to share with you about
Ooh.
my experiences. My first experience with fantasy football was back in 2007 when I was the defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We were playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Herm Edwards was the head coach. We were up 17-0. With about 15 seconds to go, Sammy Parker caught a pass from Brody Coyle. I'll never forget this. And we had a shutout going. We were up 17-0. As a defensive coordinator, you're all excited. I mean,
Shut up.
I was so ticked off that we gave up that touchdown with like 13 seconds to go in the game. And it might have even been, I can't remember. Could have been 0-0. Could have been the last play of the game. And I remember it like it was yesterday. You know me, Reg. I'm focused on ball, only ball. We get back, we get back to Jacksonville, and we had those old-fashioned phones where they had the little red dot, and when you had a message, it would beep, it would flash. So I get back after, of course, I was ticked the whole way back.
Yeah.
I was mad as hell
Yeah.
about losing the ball game this way, or not losing the game, losing the shutout. So I go into
Right.
my office, pick up my phone, see that there's a message, and I get this message, and it's somebody cursing me out because they had our defense on their fantasy football team, and I cost them to lose the game. So on Monday I come into Dan Edwards, who had the role that you had in Atlanta, great guy. I said, "Man, you got to tell me something." Said, "What the hell is fantasy football?" I didn't know anything about it. I said, "I got the most strangest message on my phone when we got back from from Kansas City." I always came into my office and I actually watched the game before I went home. And he explained it to me. And I said, so these people were mad. I said, "Now here's the big problem. How did they get my phone number?" My
Unbelievable.
direct, I said it had to be somebody that was close to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They couldn't call info and get my straight line to my office.
Listed, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, so that was my first experience. So he gave me the old, okay, you pick offense, you pick a defense, then you pick a running back, you pick a wide receiver,
Big
and you pick a
quarterback.
quarterback.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, I had no friggin' idea what it was. But I mean, I got cursed out. I mean, if it would have been on TV, that would have been beep, 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 So that was my first experience with fantasy football. And then I had another scary one in Atlanta. One time we were playing the Saints, and we took a knee, won the ball game, and we could have kicked the field goal, and we took a knee. Well, it had something to do with the point spread. So about Thursday of that week, my admin, you know who she is. She read all my mail, and she brought this letter to me. Said, "Coach, I'm really concerned about this letter that you got." And it was a letter that had no return address. It was handwritten, and it said, because of the point spread that we had that in that game, said something about, "Coach Smith, we know where your daughter goes to school." Said,
oh my God.
You change the outcome of that game, or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. You talk about scaring you.
Yeah,
but because we
absolutely.
did,
Yeah.
we decided to take a knee and it did something to the point spread. I couldn't tell you what, if it helped them or helped us, but it didn't help the guy or person that
That
hand
is,
wrote the letter to me and told us. Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
little
So
crazy.
those are two of the gambling stories that I can tell you about my experiences. One as a defensive coordinator, one as a head coach. But it's wide open now, isn't it,
But,
Reg?
it's one of those things that, you talk to guys who are still working in the league, and I've got, as you know, I've got a bunch of guys who work for me who are still working in the league as directors and vice presidents, and they say it's one of the, biggest things that they're having to deal with regards to, especially the young guys who grew up with technology and their cell phones, and they're constantly on their cell phones doing social media, running their social media pages, this, that, and the third. And he said a lot of them, have come to them to get clarification on what the rules are. And my guys, I said, "What do you tell him?" I tell him, our player development guy sort of is a guy who sort of adjudicates the program, and he's the guy who knows. I'm thinking the league needs to do a little bit more, because every now and again, you've read about 5 or 6 guys guys who are young players, really young, very talented guys, and they're in trouble. They're under investigation, and it's a blight on the league. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It's bad publicity. It's bad for the team. It's bad for the player. It's bad for the league.
It really is, Reg. And you almost wish you wish that they just had a rule that said you can't do it.
You can't
And
do
make
it.
it black, make it black or white, and
Like it should be.
but we've opened it. It's opened up, and it's a completely different place than it was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
where basically you were afraid to do it. Now the phone makes it so easy that you can get into a league of fantasy football. You can do prop bets. You can do everything on your phone, and it's going to continue to get worse or there's going to be more access. I shouldn't say get worse. There's going to be more access
Yeah.
to make bets on sports. And I don't know if people are going to make money for it, but I don't know if it's better for the game. I really don't.
Not sure it is. I understand the revenue. I understand the revenue component of it, but I'm also a big proponent. I'm old school like you are when it comes to the integrity of the game, and how fans view the game, and how the public views the game. And I think anytime you see that, you're wondering, okay, what are people's perception of the game when they see a guy's being investigated the game? I think the first thing your mind goes to, he's betting on his team, or he's using information, and that's bad for the game.
It really is. It may and they may not be betting on the game. We really don't know until the investigation comes out, and it taints the player, and there's going to be repercussions. And that's one of the things that I think the league is probably a little bit behind. I saw where they came out and said they're using Tom Brady right now, doing an announcement and all that. But it's education. You've got to have the whole entire organization have a plan, right, to make sure that everybody understands the rules. And you've got to bang it home to the players and the people within the organization, because a lot of times guys aren't paying attention like they need to. And so as we always talked about, you have to say it 3 times before someone's going to really hear it. So you can't just say, okay, we brought somebody in to talk about it. We've done it one time. We need to talk about it all the time and make it at the forefront, so it's not an issue and it doesn't put a black mark on the NFL, which is such a great organization. And it's just something that they definitely need to address, and it's not working right now because one person being investigated is too many when it comes to gambling. So it's in the league's office's hands. They got to come up with some type of program to make sure that they're getting the information out to the players.
Right. You're fishing up on the PR man, the coach talking ball on the Ball Father podcast presented by Sports Sakita. I had a little fun with this. I want to just have a little fun as we finish up here. I was driving in my car with my girl the other day. We were just talking, and I was listening to one of the guys, Adam Shine, who you know, on Fox Sports Radio, and he was talking about there's a power shift in both the AFC and the NFC. And he and his co-host, they're arguing and they're going back and forth. And you don't know what you're talking. Hell no, you don't know what you're talking. It was really, really good radio. And so I thought it'd be kind of good to kind of talk a little bit about what I view. It might be a power shift. I think specifically in the AFC, I think the top 6 teams now going into the 2023 season are obviously the world champions, Kansas City Chiefs, and the rest of the order you can disagree or agree.
We disagree, Reg. I want you to know. I'm going to tell you, we're going to disagree. We're going to disagree. Go ahead.
Okay. You got Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, New York Jets, Baltimore, and Jacksonville. Now, I think I'm not married to any kind of order, but I think obviously the Kansas City Chiefs, the winners of 2 of the past 3 Super Bowls, they're the best. They're the best team in the NFL. I think obviously they got the quarterback. They got a Hall of Fame coach. They seem to retool. They're pretty good. Everybody keeps talking about Buffalo should be second. I'm not feeling Buffalo for a bunch of reasons. I think Buffalo's going to take a little bit of a step back. They're going to go into it whereas the head coach is going to be calling the defense. The defensive coordinator is off. He's taking the year off. It's a big year for the quarterback who seems to get to the playoffs, plays great, has a big arm, but he can't seem to close the deal and win a playoff game and get his team at least to the AFC Championship game. So I think they need to figure it out. The one team that I think everybody needs to pay attention to this year is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're going to take a big step this year. I like the quarterback. I love the coach. I like the energy he brings. I think they're going to. I mean, they were down 28 points in a playoff game and came all the way back and won. I think they've shown a lot of moxie, and I think they're going to be way better than people think they're going to be in 2023. You have the floor, Coach Smith.
Oh, God. Well, Reg, everybody's talking about the New York Jets.
Yep.
And I think that's a little premature to be talking about the New York Jets. I think it's the sexy one.
Yeah.
There's been a big trade, Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame quarterback going to the Jets.
Yeah.
I think we need to tap the brakes on that and let's play some football. I see the top 2 is Kansas City and Cincinnati.
Right.
No doubt about it. And then I'm going to put Jacksonville ahead of Buffalo.
Okay.
I think that the Jaguars, you hit it right on the head. And then I don't want to disrespect the Baltimore Ravens. Coach Harbaugh does a great job there in Baltimore, and I think a good friend of mine, Todd Monken, who I've worked with at 2 different places, new offensive coordinator. I think they've got everything figured out with Lamar Jackson. He's happy, highest paid player in the National Football League, and the offense is going to look completely different than it's looked the last couple of years. So I'm pretty, I feel pretty good about it. I would put Jacksonville maybe up above Buffalo though.
Okay.
And that would be the way I see it. The top, that I don't see the Jets as a top 16. I don't know if you do or not, but that's how I see it.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think the hype, it was really good, sexy offseason story. It took a little bit of time to develop, but everybody was excited about, Aaron Rodgers joining the Jets. I mean, it was the worst kept secret in football. We knew it was going to happen. He announced it was going to happen. He goes to the whole cave and gets his head together and all that nonsense. But it made for tremendous theater, and everybody was following it this offseason. You know better than anybody that Aaron Rodgers is a competitive guy. We go up there and play him. You could hear him. He's screaming on the field, Smitty, we're going to whip your butt today.
Oh, he's a competitor. The Jets are going to be better. And it's just there's no doubt about it. They're going to be better with Aaron Rodgers. It's just a matter, are they going to be an elite team?
Yeah.
And when you talk about the top 6 in each conference, you're talking about really good football teams. You talk about the top 2, you're talking about elite football teams for sure.
Yeah. I think Buffalo is the one I'm intrigued with the most because I'm thinking that they're not going to be as good this year. And it's a big year for them. It's a really really big year for them because you know what, the quarterback I really like him. I like I'm a big fan of guys who treat people in the building. You and I've talked about this a lot. I'm a fan of guys who treat good people in the building good, and I'm told by everybody, the PR staff up there. I know, Derek Barker, who's one of the top PR guys in the league. He says, "Hey," he said, "Reg, you ain't gonna find a better guy who treats people the right way." And I keep hearing that from a lot of folks who cover the team, people who work there, say good things about Josh. But it's not all his fault. I mean, the defense has to play a little bit better. Stephon Diggs, some of the offensive guys have to play a little bit better, and they got for them. It's time for them to take the next step. To me, it's AFC Championship game or bust for them this year.
I agree. The pressure's going to be on. They've been knocking at the door. They need to kick it down this year. But I do say this, Reg, if you compare the AFC to the NFC as a whole, I don't think there's any comparison. I think the AFC has got better teams at the top of their
we are agreed.
League.
Let's switch over to the NFC. Finish up with the NFC. Obviously, I think Philly. I want you to know. So one team I left off is Dallas, and there's a reason I left the Cowboys off. I'll tell you that in a second. I like Philly. I like San Francisco. I like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll always seems to find a way to take a team that people are thinking they're rebuilding, and he's always seems to find a way to get those guys in the playoffs. I like the New York Giants. I like what they did. I like Coach Dayball and what he's done, and from an offensive perspective, he brought back that toughness, that New York power running game back to New York City. I like the Vikings. I think, and we said this earlier in the offseason, I think the Vikings are going to be better specifically on defense because I think the guy, Brian Flores, is going to bring some juice and some know-how to the defense. I mean, they won. I don't think they'll have the same luck. They won 8, but one-score games. That'll be impossible to duplicate in the same year. And then I like Dan Campbell. I like what he's done. I like the job, how they fought and played. I think they're going to be the surprise of the NFC. They're going to be better. And I'm going to hold judgment for my boys down in the Bayou because I'm not really sure yet. I'm not really sure yet. I noticed that I left them off. I'm not really sure yet because I don't like our offseason and I'm not hearing good things about what's going on down there. So we'll see. What's your thoughts?
I think it's a
Coach,
mixed bag.
Coach, so sorry to interrupt, but we only have 5 more minutes on this call. So do you want to take your response on another call or can we finish it here only?
I think we can finish it here. Yeah, I'll run through it. I'm going to say, Reg, I believe that on the NFC side, it's so close because there's no really good team. You can find dings in everybody that you mentioned. Philadelphia probably is, if you had to say who's number one, Philadelphia is number one. But if you look at San Francisco, what are they going to do at the quarterback? They don't really know what they're going to do at the quarterback right now. Seattle, Coach Carroll does a great job. They've got a guy that they think is going to be a quarterback long term, but he's really never done it. He really hasn't done it. The Giants, I think they have some concerns at certain positions. Minnesota. If you look at it at Minnesota, I think they're definitely going to be better on defense, and they did a good job on offense. But they're in a division. They're in a division with Detroit, and Detroit's going to be a pretty good team. But I don't think they're going to be a great team. I don't see a wild card coming out of the North. I think it's going to be, it's going to be one team, the division champ. I just don't see it. I think it's, there's just so many dead average teams, in my opinion, in the NFC. It's a completely different deal. I think you can, if I had to rank them, I'd go Philadelphia, Seattle, Giants, Detroit, Minnesota, San Francisco. I think San Francisco is going to struggle a little bit with their quarterback. And I know Kyle Shanahan has done it with lesser talent at the quarterback position, but I just see the AFC being so much better than the NFC as we speak right now. And that can change with injuries
Sure.
very, very quickly, as we all know. But
Well,
it's it's going to be cool to watch.
Oh yeah.
The dead season, which is only going to be about a month.
Right.
And it's going to be great to see the teams finish up, and hopefully they'll be healthy when they go through their last part of their off season where they're actually playing football out there on the field.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, we're going to be talking about the Hall of Fame game and the Hall of Fame inductees, and then the process starts again. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be really. We had Rondé Barber on the other day on the Ball Father podcast, and you talk about a guy who made himself into a great player. I mean, he's going to the Hall. They're going in on being inducted on the 5th of August, and he's going in. You talk about a guy who's fired up. The day I talked to him, he was flying out to Montana to get his bus worked on. They were doing his bus, and he was so fired up about it. I'm talking about. Here's a guy when we drafted him in Tampa. I thought he was below average. He wasn't big enough. He wasn't. I didn't think he was that good. And you talk about making himself into a ball player. And who he told me. You know what he said on the podcast? He said the guy who impacted him the most was Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Mike worked with him closely, and of course, Monty Kiffin, Tony Dungy. He's been mentored. Rod Marinelli, he's been mentored by a bunch of great guys, and that's a great honor for Rondé. Yeah. And not only is he a great football player, but he's a great person. Yep,
really good person. You're right. Well, listen, we're going let the season go and get ready and take some vacation time. But we will be back. We're going. I put together a really good little chart for us to follow as we start the off season, and we'll share it with you next week. And we'll probably be on either not this week, but the next week, and we'll reveal what our coverage schedule for the podcast will be. We'll get that out to you.
Okay, man.
All right, man.
Looking forward to it, and looking forward to a little downtime for the players. I know they're looking forward and forward to it, and we'll chop it up again.
Looking forward to it, Mike. Have a great day, man. Take care.
All right, you too. All right.